Today we'll be talking about our experiences growing up in the city of Leeds. We may touch on issues about masculinity, what it is to be a man in the 21st, in a quarter of the way through the 21st century, how it's changed since we were taught in childhood what it was. If we can kick off by asking you, you grew up in Leeds.
I did, yeah, that's right.
And what were your experiences? What was it like?
Well, on the subject of masculinity, I mean, I grew up with predominantly after my mum and dad divorced when I was like around 8 years old. So my mum and my sister were the ones who were looking after me because I was only young. So my sister was like a second mum, the deputy, and my mum was the sheriff. And yeah, I think in our family actually that the females were the strongest kind of. It's also because my mum's mother, so my grandmother, she was also a single parent because her husband died when my mum was 15. So she was like a strong presence within the family, and that carried down through to my mum as well. So yeah, in regards to masculinity, I suppose what that does is it makes the males feel like they're not as masculine as some people would think a male would be, because you're always having to not second guess, you're always having to give that respect and know your place when you're in a family where the woman is more predominant in what's happening, you know. There were certain things I do remember with mum teaching me as well, like about respect for the women and things like that. I remember the first time when I first got a job, my first wage, my mum said I had to give it to my sister. She said, that's just what you do. You look after the women. So there was a lot of that in our family. I think it was more around the women being the stronger part. And I didn't have a male presence. There was my stepdad that came into it, but I didn't really get on with him. So in regards to guidance and having a strong masculine presence, it wasn't really something I had, to be honest.
Right. It sounds. I mean, in a way, it's a bit of a cliche, but there is a kind of a typically northern thing of kind of a strong feminine presence within families and matriarchs. It is almost a cliche.
Yeah.
And if you think about, I mean, referring to TV dramas, not exactly. I mean, they're not documentaries, but if you think of things like Coronation Street, chock full of these very, very strong female characters. And my dad was there when I was growing up, but again, it was in some ways I'm the youngest by quite a margin of a fairly large family, but it was mostly women. There was like my dad, my older brother, me.
Yeah.
And then there were three older sisters and my mum. And again, it was. I keep coming back to this. It's almost a kind of cliche, but it was my mum was a very forthright, very strong character. And I think it made me a better man because there's we hear a lot about sort of toxic masculinity these days, but growing up and it sounds like you did as well, having it drummed into you, respect for women.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but interestingly enough, I think sometimes you can be in a position where you can withhold your own feelings and thoughts to ensure that the other party or the female is feeling or getting the respect that they should. So it's how do you know the line between losing yourself to giving respect? Because I found myself in that situation where I felt as though I lost myself because you're trying to please the other side so much, and you can get that. You get some people where you say there's toxic masculinity, but at the same time, you also get people who are trying to support, for example, the wife so much so that they lose themselves as well, if that makes sense.
It's definitely a balancing act.
Yeah.
And it's something we've at other times here we've spoken about and it kind of it draws the kind of thread of creativity into the discussion, where certainly I was brought up, men were actively discouraged from expressing themselves, particularly expressing feelings, expressing vulnerability.
Yeah.
And as you say, if you're taught that you're there to support someone else, it's very easy to end up putting yourself second and becoming a non-person, if you like.
That's right. Yeah, and you would probably get the same answer as well from a lot of women who would say that they've lost themselves in trying to support the family and the husbands. So
you get so caught up in acting out a role.
Yeah,
you're not yourself anymore.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, there wasn't any kind of like I say, in regards to role modeling and having both parents. I didn't really have a real kind of example of that. Even though I had a stepdad, it still wasn't to me like I don't know, a natural kind of flow, because when you've got your dad, he can say whatever he wants to you, but when you've got a stepdad and he says something to you, there's always going to be that barrier that, well, I mean, I'd never say you're not my dad, but in your mind, it's never the natural kind of...
Yeah, but the reality was he wasn't your dad.
Yeah, and I think I picked up a few kind of behaviours through different males who were in my life. So whether it was my girlfriend's father, so I'd pick up a few things from there, as role models, and my stepdad, even though he had, he had some good aspects and bad aspects. I probably picked up some of those, and then my dad as well, who I did see now and then growing up. So it's a mishmash of whatever you can put together, and I think the role models are very important, aren't they, really, when you're growing up, because you've got to follow something. You've got to follow people when the kids grow up, that, I think that they try to emulate the parents in some sense, until they get to that age where they think, hang on a second, you're not really the kind of person I thought you were when I was a kid. And I'm going totally against what you're saying now,
I understand music's played quite a big role in your development, your growth. Could you tell us something about that?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I've always liked music. When we were younger, obviously, Top of the Pops and the radio used to do the things that all kids used to do. You'd put your tape in and try to wait for the DJ to stop talking and record it, and then try to clip it off before he starts talking again. And growing up, it was just, there was no specific kind of music I was really into. I just remember at the time, Brotherhood of Man and all that kind of stuff growing up, But when I really sort of like, it was a bit bittersweet, to be honest. When I got older and really started getting into music, I really liked ska music, right? But the reason I say it's bittersweet was because at the time, there were some individuals who used that music for their own kind of, how can I say, their own beliefs in, we're talking about skinheads and things like that, the National Front during that time. So that's why it was bittersweet, and it was like I liked it, but at the same time, it had an association with these skinheads, because there were a few occasions when I was growing up where I lived in an area where, I mean, now it's full of Asian people. Back then, it wasn't. I remember getting shot at with air rifles, and actually once getting dragged into a garage where there were all these like skins, and they were sort of trying to decide what they were going to do to me. Luckily, this girl took pity on me, and she sort of like ushered me to the side, put herself in the way of these individuals, and opened the garage and said, "Just run," which I did, and I've got her to thank really. Don't know who she was. And at that time, like I said, the Skins were sort of, there was a massive following of ska music by skinheads as well, I mean, when I say skinheads, you got the skinheads who were the soul music lovers, but then you also had the racist skinheads, which, so it was really weird. It was really weird. I liked it, but at the same time, I didn't like it. It took years to get over that. It really took me many years to get over it. It used to make me feel really weird inside because I'd be like nodding my head to it, but then thinking, the association of this music, But that was like one example. But then I also used to like a lot of reggae music. I remember finding some records in this house. I don't know whose they were. I just started playing them, and there were all these old reggae tunes and things like that. And then as I got into my later years, I moved into an area which was predominantly West Indian community. And it was just off Shepherd's Lane, Spencer Place. And at that time, there used to be, do you know the blues clubs? Have you heard of the blues clubs?
Yeah.
So the after hours, people would make these clubs in the houses and what have you. And I was only young, so I didn't obviously frequent those places at that time. But I'd been in my bedroom, I could hear the bass and everything going, the tunes and stuff. So I was about maybe 17, 18. I'd go downstairs, out of the house in summer, sit on the wall, smoking my cig and just listening to all these tunes that they were playing. So that became part of my identity in a sense as well. So yeah, that's where I suppose where reggae, ska, and it's always been my kind of go-to music, is that really?
I know I'm not naive enough to think like crap like that doesn't go on, but to actually to sit across the way for somebody who's been through that experience, and it must have been horrifying for you. But as a white man, it's horrifying to hear. That's a horrible part of my culture.
Yeah, but it wasn't your culture. It was other individuals. This is the problem that's happening now. Is that people are associating themselves with those bad individuals. It's not your culture. It was their culture.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've been through a self-discovery process. Don't get me wrong. I went through the process of being racist towards white people because of my experiences growing up.
I think understandably.
Right. But then you've got to look at yourself and you've got to look at how humanity is and correct yourself, because you can't taint everybody in the same way. Do you see what I mean? It has an impact on you.
Yeah.
But then you've got to correct it. I mean, there's been a few occasions. I mean, I felt really let down once when I used to go to this judo club that used to be over the road from where I lived. It was this community church hall thing. I've been going there for a few months, maybe a year, got myself onto the next belt and all this. And, the only Asian guy there was never any problem. And then I remember going to the toilet. So the hall had these clear glass doors, and then you'd go to the toilet. So I went to the toilets, came back through, and there were a couple of skins that had come through and seen me, and they were like, what are you doing in our country, sort of thing, And I was going, well, I'm born here, spitting on me and stuff. And then give me a couple of digs, I mean, as a kid, you do judo. I still didn't know how to fight people. I was petrified, kind of thing. And then they walked out, and then I looked around, and people were looking from the judo club, all the teachers and the people there. No one said a word. So I went in, grabbed my bag, and I walked out. And then for years, my mum used to have a go at me saying, "No, that's just you. You start something and you never finish it." And I was too embarrassed to tell her why I'd left that club. And it took me about 10 years before I actually got around to telling her, Other examples, I mean, again, it's just giving you examples of the sort of things that people go through. I went to a primary school, Dorset Primary School. And so as far as I knew, my parents said, look, eat whatever you want, but don't have any meat that isn't halal, because that's what we do. We eat halal meat. And pork is off. We don't have pork. That's just completely whatever. Go to school, get to lunchtime, oh, I don't want any meat, thanks. Well, why not? And I called the teacher over. Do you eat meat at home? Yeah. They start shouting at me. Why aren't you eating? What's wrong with this meat? So then they put the meat on and I had to eat it. And I was in tears and this teacher's shouting and I'm like almost throwing up because, and that went on. And I just got too afraid to say no. And I had to eat this food, which, and I daredn't say anything when I got home. I just felt too embarrassed and I felt as though I'd be seen as an idiot or being too weak and stuff like that, There's just so many different experiences, but you can't then say, like you were saying, it's my culture or whatever. It's just certain individuals. Now, those kinds of behaviours and thoughts in people it was rife in those days, 70s, 80s, So we grew up with it. Parents used to say, Mum used to say to me, you need to be able to speak your own language, because I could never really speak my own language. When you say my own language, I mean my mother tongue. I was never fluent.
What would that be?
So mother tongue from my parents was Punjabi. I wasn't very good or very fluent. Mum used to say, you need to learn. I said, why do I need to learn that? She goes, well, if you ever get kicked out, she goes, there could be a day when you get kicked out. And I was going, oh, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, Mum, And they always used to say, you never know, you never know. So I never really learned it. I mean, I can get by, But those were the kind of thoughts we had. We didn't really feel British because we felt as though you're always going to be, something could be around the corner and stuff. So we grew up with all these kinds of behaviours, going to people back then started to learn Kung Fu martial arts because they felt as though they had to be able to defend themselves. A lot of people in communities which were Black Asian used to do that. And we used to love watching Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and all that kind of stuff growing up. And then years go on, and I get married to somebody who's white English, okay? And we have children, dual heritage children, bring them up. And even though I had my experiences, I didn't want to affect their growing up, so I did not put my own experiences onto what happened, because I want them to be able to grow in their own kind of their own individuality and not be influenced by my experiences. Some people can go, oh, these people are like this or those people are like that. So they grew up, dual heritage, they have their own experiences between people who are Asian and white, this and that, negative, positive, on both sides, But the thing is, now that the political kind of climate is changing and it's starting to go back to how it was, people openly being able to say what they want.
I was wanting to ask you about that.
So the fear isn't for me, because I've grown up in it. Tomorrow I can be back, ready, knowing it's not alien to me. But for those individuals who grew up 90s, 2000, where things were just actually all right, to be honest, they weren't as bad, it's now reverting back to it. And I feel so sorry for those people who grew up feeling British, feeling their identity was here, and now people are starting to target.
There's a very real danger of having the rug pulled out completely from under them, because they're
the ones I feel sorry for. Yeah. I'll always be able to just revert back to it because we grew up with it.
Yeah, it alarms me as somebody of white British heritage, walking through the estate I live on and seeing the George Cross hung from lampposts, and it's it's like something out of Nazi Germany.
Yeah, I mean,
so I can't even imagine what's somebody of a different ethnic background must feel about that.
Yeah, the Union Jack was always because like I said, growing up, National Front, they used to give out the papers, if you remember Albion Street by that fountain, and the Union Jack was always a symbol of fascism, to me, because that's how it was portrayed. And then it always remained like that. So it was always, because it was always used that way. It was never inclusive. It was never shown to say, you are part of this. Apart from if you ever remember the Olympics that we had, and it was in UK, and we had like all the different people who were like getting the goals, and you know, Mo Farah and all this, and suddenly these people were included. You know, we're British and we're getting the gold medals and the flag and all this, and it was like, wow, I really feel British now. We've got these people. Mo Farah is also British. We've got the Union Jack, and it was like, this is fantastic. Really great feeling at that time, you know. But unfortunately, it's being used again. You know, we say that, you know, St George's flag and things like that. It does. It's a bit strange. You know, you'll go to certain neighbourhoods and you see the flags, and you sort of straight away, your mind is going, right, I just need to be a little bit careful here, you know.
And I have to remind myself. I mean, you raised the point yourself. It's not everybody. It's just. I hope, and perhaps I'm being unrealistically optimistic, but it's just a handful of people.
That's right, and it is just a handful of people. But interestingly, it seems scary because it's those handful of people. It could be the handful of people that might be extreme in their views, in, you know, fascism or racism, but you'll also have the majority that are starting to be swayed towards certain thoughts, and you know, because immigration and all this kind of stuff is just getting thrown out in the media, you know, and when people are doing things, why are they doing this, why have they do that, you know, people from all different types of cultures have different behaviors, but as soon as you start to twist it to make it look negative, you know, you'll be fulfilling a certain role without even knowing that. People are going to be thinking, he must be like that because he's just done this.
And again, it just the whole mindset. Well, I don't understand the mindset, but kind of for me, you know, an essential part of Britishness was the corner shop that was run by a Pakistani family, or the the Bangladeshi kebab house on the corner, and that always felt. I mean, it's a kind of it's a sort of a reflection of empire, which was not a good thing because we went around the world like the school bully. Mm-hmm. But you know, we became a melting pot, and to me, that's an inherent part of Britishness. Mm. And I think what alarms me about you talked about the Union Jack, the Union flag, but the George Cross, it's like that's not British, that's English. It's like we don't even want anything to do with the Scots and the Welsh.
Oh yeah, I mean you'll get. There's always going to be something in it. You're either going to be disliked because you're Scottish, Irish, Welsh, or ginger. You know, there's always something, isn't there? And in-house, people are always going to have that kind of segregation. You've probably got it amongst, you know, there'll be people amongst in my ethnicity and community that'll say, oh, well, we're Punjabi and those people are different and we're not, you know. There's always going to be some kind of segregation, but it shouldn't get into the way where it starts affecting the way people actually have a hatred or, you know. Before, I was under the understanding. The understanding was that when the working class people who were struggling, finding it hard. I mean, my parents were working class. My dad used to work in a foundry and all that kind of stuff. And things aren't easy. But when the media is making people think that the reason they're struggling is because of immigrants or because of people who, you know, people of colour, etc., then, you know, you sort of start getting worried because these people are also the people delivering services or, you know, what I'm trying to get at is that I've just had this feeling that it's not just the working class now, it's escalating to the people who are in other roles. It makes you wonder, you start questioning, you know, is this happening because of my name? Is this happening because, you know, where, for example, I don't know, you know, you could be a doctor or somebody who has an influence over what happens to you or a referral or whatever, because, you know, people in power. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but you never used to question it as much before. I always used to sort of put it down to, oh, that person's having a bad day. It's got nothing to do with anything else. Whereas now, because of all this, the current climate, you start thinking, is it because of my name?
Is there an agenda there?
Yeah, is there an agenda there? And I hate having to think like that, really. And which is why I always try to be friendly with everyone, even if I know someone's been a complete arsehole to me. I will still try to, I remember my mum saying, every one of us is an ambassador of our culture or our religion or whatever. So try to, overcome, don't react in that same way. And it works, sometimes you come across people that you think, bloody hell, got a bit of an attitude or whatever, but you just be nice and you can end up getting on.